live, guys! So today's movie I'm going to be discussing on the channel is the feature debut of Phyllis Nagy, who actually wrote the screenplay for a movie which is very close to my heart, Carol. Her feature debut is called Call Jane. To be honest, this one wasn't really on my radar. I wasn't intending to watch it at the London Film Festival, but given everything that's gone on in the US this past year with the Supreme Court overruling Roe versus Wade, I did feel compelled to give my thoughts on this movie because, interestingly, the movie was shot before the Supreme Court ruling. So, weirdly now, it does feel more timely and more topical and more relevant than it was when it was made, because the US State Supreme Court has now made it far more difficult for women in the US to get access to safe abortions that they require. Anyway, let's talk about Call Jane. The plot of Call Jane is set in 1968 Chicago and is centered around a housewife called Joy, played by Elizabeth Banks, who falls pregnant but has cardiomyopathy in her first trimester and is at risk of dying from having the baby. Her doctor says to her that she needs an abortion because she has about a 50-50% chance of surviving the pregnancy. But this is a time before abortion was made legal in the US, so the hospital board, which is made up of, you guessed it, men, decides that, sorry, love, we can't have your therapeutic abortion. 50-50% chance is good enough for us. So yeah, there's the door. Bye. This whole scene just illustrates what women's rights were like back in the 1960s and how little say that women actually had in their bodies and their health. Anyway, Joy gets more and more desperate to find someone who will help her get an abortion, and she stumbles across a flyer for a women's service known as Call Jane, which is an underground abortion service run by women, for women. Obviously for women, it's an abortion service. Men don't get abortions, Luke. Doy! Anyway, yeah, it's run by this woman called Virginia, who's played by Sigourney Weaver. Run by women, for women. God, yeah, that was a beautifully blonde moment from me, sorry. And after Joy uses their service, she finds an unexpected calling in helping other women acquire the safe abortions that they need. In terms of plot, it's quite straightforward. It's a character study showing the growth of a narrow-minded, conservative, privileged individual who is awoken by the call to action to help her fellow sisters and finds a greater purpose than being just a housewife. It's a simple A to B character journey that's got a provocative topic, but its execution is light enough for audiences not to be put off by it. The performances are enjoyable. I actually think this is the first time I've seen Elizabeth Banks as a leading role. Normally she's a reliable comedic supporting player in a film, but it's nice to see her be given the opportunity to lead. And Joy is a nice meaty part for her. Doting wife turned women's reproductive rights crusader. Parts like this don't come around all too often, so it's nice to see Elizabeth Banks rise to the challenge and be so good in it. But there's also fab work from Wumni Masasku, Grace Edwards, Chris Messina, Kate Mara, Evangeline Young, and the always reliable Sigourney Weaver. Haley Shaw and Roshan Sethi's screenplay strikes a pleasant balance of hard-hitting subject matter with lightheartedness and dimensional characters. The only thing it's missing, though, is dramatic conflict or stakes. Like, it does feel very safe, the film. Like, I was expecting at one point or another for the ladies to get busted or caught by someone, but it never really happens. So yeah, I could have done with a little bit more tension. Certain scenes did feel a little bit unnecessary, like Joy getting stoned in a car, but I will admit that scene did make me chuckle, so I can forgive gripes like that. I also think that it misses an opportunity to go a little bit deeper with some of the heaviest subjects that the film addresses. Again, it's the whole idea of the film playing things a bit too safe. Like the fact that there's a staggering amount of black women who can't afford the Call Jane service. The film acknowledges this racial economic imbalance, but it doesn't really have anything more to say about it. Also, the scene where Joy finds the flyer for Call Jane is one of the worst uses of fake rain I have ever seen in a movie ever. It's like an AD just turned on a hose behind the camera and poured it over Elizabeth Banks' head. They do such a clumsy job of trying to hide the fact that it's only raining on Joy and not on the rest of the street. Like, as she walks down the road, you can actually see a puddle that's ahead of her, which is as still as a mill pond, but as Elizabeth Banks approaches it, you can see droplets of water starting to hit it. Yeah, it's bad. Little details like that illustrate that Phyllis Nagy is very new to directing. You could probably get away with something like that in a TV movie, but in a film of this star power and budget, it just comes across as amateur. So let's ask them 3 questions. Firstly, would I watch this again? Probably not. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the film, I just don't think there's much here for me to watch multiple times. Question 2, do I recommend it for you guys? If you like films about social change during the 60s and 70s, like The Trial of Chicago 7, then yeah, you're probably going to like this. What I was actually reminded of whilst I was watching it was the TV series Mrs. America, which funnily enough also has Elizabeth Banks in the cast. But also, given everything that's gone on in the US in the past year with the overturning of Roe versus Wade, it does feel quite relevant to struggles of today's modern women. So for that, I do have to kind of consider that I am a man, and it's more likely that women are going to be more affected by this film. So yeah, I'd say women will probably enjoy this more due to the personal and sensitive nature of the topics that it addresses. I'll say that I don't think it's a must-watch film, but it is an enjoyable watch. So yeah, I softly recommend it. And third question, what score would I give it out of 10? I appreciate how Cold Jane approaches its sensitive subject matter with humor, heart, and compassion. I really did enjoy the performances as well, particularly Elizabeth Banks, but I do think this is one of those films which is just like 1 or 2 rungs above a made-for-TV movie. So I'm gonna give Cold Jane a score of 5 out of 10. But as always, guys, it's just one bloke's opinion. I do want to hear from you. Have you seen Cold Jane? If you have, what did you make of this film? Let your voice be heard in that comment section down below. If you have enjoyed this video, please do help me out by hitting that little thumbs up button. If you want more movie, TV, and Oscars related content, don't forget to go subscribe. And if you want to follow me on any of my socials, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, it's all in that video description down below. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. For more things related to movies, TV, the Oscars, and popcorn culture, I'm Luke Carefield, and I'll see you next time.